Hi, my name's Carolyn Hodge and I'm the Policy Officer with the Energy and Water Consumers Advocacy Program at the Public Interest Advocacy Centre. We're here today to talk about energy poverty, and I have some guests with me. We have Kevin, who's an energy consumer. We have Lynne Chester, who's an energy researcher from the University of Sydney, and Alan Morris, who's a sociologist who works with marginalised people. So, energy poverty. What can we do about energy poverty?
Well, I think it's obviously a huge issue, and we need to take, I think it's not really on the agenda, so I think the first thing is to put it on the agenda as an issue. And I think once that's done, I think there are a couple of things obviously which could be looked at. Obviously the cost of energy is a big factor, and the expectation that people who are on very low income should be able to pay these large bills is obviously an issue. So there's the possibility of increasing the rebates that people on low income get, and that's one possibility. Maybe I should hand over to Lynne and Kevin.
No, I mean, I think what Alan said is quite reasonable, and I think there's probably a range of measures we should be thinking about, so that perhaps in the short term and immediate situation is to increase those forms of assistance. But I think longer term we need to think about more what I call more structural solutions, like Kevin mentioned earlier about the Department of Housing, perhaps fitting solar panels on all of their stock. Those sorts of things are more long-term solutions, but they need commitments. They need commitments by government because it will require resources. But I'd like to sort of come back to what Alan was saying a little bit earlier about energy poverty, about getting it on the agenda. We're not recognising it. We're not recognising right now in 2010 in Australia, people are struggling to pay their energy bills that have been driven by high electricity prices. And as a result of those high bills, they are being deprived or making sacrifices in terms of how they manage that on a limited income. We're not recognising it. It's all very well to have debates about climate change and greenhouse gas emissions, but people in 2010 are struggling to pay their energy bills because a higher and higher amount of income is being used to pay higher electricity prices. And governments have announced that higher electricity prices are going to occur in the next few years, and they will be even higher when something's done about climate change. And that's why I think, coming back to Alan's earlier point, that's why it needs to be on the agenda. We need to be recognising it, recognising the impacts, and starting to devise some long-term solutions to help people who are in this very difficult situation, and not just put a band-aid on, actually get them out of energy poverty and keep them out of energy poverty.
Kevin, do you have any ideas about what we could do to help people who are experiencing energy poverty?
Well, I'd agree with what Alan said, and that's get it out there on the agenda, get it out there, put it out there as much as we can, and get response to that also from the consumers. Consumer input is, I'm a big believer in consumer input, and I think consumer input is where you get a lot of ideas to fix things that are being overlooked. And as you suggested before, one of my big fix ideas, I was sitting there thinking about the solar panel idea and thinking, well, how much would housing benefit? Human services benefit by fitting solar panels to all the units. How much would those renting the units benefit from that? As just one probably small idea in the big scheme of things. I know that there's quite a lot of people who are doing without to have electricity. I don't have any great answers straight off the mark, although I've spent a week or so trying to think of them. But I'm a big believer of putting it out there as a main agenda and getting a good consumer response to that. So yeah.
I think also we need to recognise that there's a range of different consumers that this is impacting on. So it might be people who live in Department of Housing accommodation, apartments or houses. It may be private renters, older private renters. It might be those who are living in their own home. Now often it's, and I think this is what Alan's research is starting to show, we often think that people living in their own home, they're in a much better situation. And yes, they do have that asset, but they're also struggling. They are really struggling with these high electricity bills. So we shouldn't ignore that group because they're in their own home, but we've got to recognise that they don't have, you know, they've got an asset which people renting publicly or privately don't have as well. And those that may have a long-term illness or are less mobile in the community, we've got to recognise they've got different circumstances in terms of their energy use. And that's why I come back to one size won't fit all. We've actually got to look at some different things and long-term solutions.
So Kevin, what would you say to someone who might say, oh, people should just use less energy and then they will be able to afford what they used?
I'd say try that first. Yeah, I would really ask them to try that out before they suggest that anybody else tried that. I know what it's like to live with limited electricity. It's not very comfortable at all. As I discussed before, my winter was a very unpleasant winter. It was a winter of not wanting to get out of bed. It was just far too cold. The trip from the bed to the shower was just far too long. Not having that comfort of just being able to flick a heater on for a couple of hours to warm the place up and enjoy it. I remember sitting there watching TV a couple of nights in a row there where I was actually puffing out steam, like condensation, because I was just so cold in my home, you know, and it was a very unenjoyable winter. But
in listening to you, Kevin, and all of you today, I've just been sort of struck by how energy poverty affects such a broad range of parts of people's lives. So it doesn't just affect you in your home, in your kitchen, it affects your health, it affects your mental health. And I think that in promoting energy poverty, we really need to acknowledge that so that we can start to talk more about it and try to develop some solutions.
It's the implications of energy poverty. Often I think we've talked traditionally about poverty as lack of income, but it's the implications of high energy prices with limited resources, what it actually does to someone's life, right across from their physical health, their mental health, their self-esteem, and even things like applying for assistance or hardship assistance. It's what we actually do to people in terms of, you know, the loss of dignity, or I think you used the word earlier, embarrassment. To actually sort of, and the implication is, well, look, I can't quite manage, so there's something wrong with me. No, it's not that there's something wrong with them. The high electricity prices and the limited resources are combining with inefficient housing stock to put them in the situation where they do need to apply for assistance if they're aware that it's available, and if they're in a position where they can apply for assistance and they don't actually need to seek help from some other member of the community to apply for that assistance.
Well, I'd really like to thank all of our panel today for joining us, so Kevin, Lynne and Alan. PIAC will be putting this film on our website. If you're watching this on any other website, the address is www.piac.asn.au, and we'll be putting up some information on the website about what assistance is available to pay your electricity bills. So thank you for joining us.